My name is Alyssa. Due to slight climate changes, our rural home has become more susceptible to insect infestation. As a result, I actively perform pest control every year, effectively becoming a hunter-like figure as a 34-year-old full-time housewife. Once fearful of insects, by the age of 30, I began to conduct extermination work without changing my expression. I think I have become quite tough. Today I want to share an episode about how I dealt with my younger sister Emma, who had an affair with my husband Scott. He was my childhood acquaintance, but our relationship blossomed a few years ago when I was still in my 20s. At that time, a middle school reunion was held after a long while, and I got reunited with him there. When we had just started elementary school, Emma, 2 years younger than me, Scott, and I used to play together. However, as we reached the age where it became embarrassing to play with girls, Scott began to distance himself from us. Scott's family moved away during middle school, making it even harder to keep in touch. Therefore, it was very tense for us to talk at the reunion. But something reliable exists when you grow up alcohol. Scott and I, both lovers of alcohol, enjoyed the reunion more than expected thanks to its help. After we had a drink for 3 rounds just by ourselves, Scott said something as we were about to part ways. "I've liked you since we were kids, and it seems those feelings have continued until now." I thought, what does that mean? But the conversation lightened, and he suggested, "Why don't we date?" So our relationship began. The next day, a sober Scott exclaimed, "Oh, I finally said it. How embarrassing. Am I being pretentious? What do you think? Is it selfish?" while rolling on the floor, and I burst into laughter. Though I felt sorry for him, seeing the person you like feel embarrassed is inexplicably fun. Afterward, things progressed quickly, and we decided to get married, visited both families, and informed them about the wedding plan for 6 months later and the start of us living together. We did that before the wedding to better understand each other's daily lives. Since we were originally childhood friends, our families knew each other well. There were no obstacles, and they gave us their blessings for our marriage smoothly. That's how it should have been, but something unexpected happened at home. During a meal with my family, Scott had come to visit. "Hello," said Emma after she came home from work. Upon seeing Scott at the table, her surprise quickly turned to joy. "Scott, why are you here?" Scott said, glancing at me shyly. "Actually, we've been dating for the past 6 months and are considering marriage. He came today to tell us about it." I decided to explain the situation to Emma, thinking it was my responsibility. At that moment, Emma's face contorted as if she was holding discomfort. "Wow, I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. See you later." She hurriedly went into her room and slammed the door shut. Oh, this is bad. I wondered if I had upset her and looked at Scott with a puzzled expression, but he reassured me with a smile. "It's okay." Just to clarify, Emma is not usually like that. She might be dissatisfied with our marriage and living arrangement. But why is she the only one feeling this way when our parents see no problem? Unable to grasp Emma's feelings, I debated whether to ask her directly after Scott left. As I was about to go to the bathroom, I encountered Emma in the hallway. Oops. Lost for words? Emma glared at me angrily. I can't believe you decided to marry Scott. I've liked him for a long time. I will never forgive you. Emma stormed off with heavy footsteps, leaving me in shock. At her sudden confession, I could only be astonished. Really? Did she like Scott? It felt like a drama unfolding, and I was overwhelmed. After a sleepless night, I came to a conclusion. Even if Emma likes my fiancé, why should it be a problem? Our marriage is already decided. If Scott had said he liked Emma, it would be a different story, but that's not the case. If she had feelings for him since childhood, she should have told him sooner. It's her own failure not to have expressed her feelings, and I shouldn't be blamed. I expected her backlash, but decided to handle it with the poise of an elder sister. In this heavy situation, I chose to think optimistically. However, I continued to struggle with whether to tell Scott. If Emma's feelings became known to him, it could cause problems. But if I didn't tell him, he might continue to feel uncomfortable every time he came to our house. Deciding it was his right to know, I explained everything to him. If there's trouble, seek help. There's only so much I can do. Scott reassured me. Sibling issues, huh? If Emma becomes aggressive, will you protect me? Of course not. Ha. With such light-hearted exchanges, we decided not to overthink things. We had no intention of reversing our decision to marry, and persuading Emma and gaining her understanding seemed unlikely. Ultimately, just letting it be was our decision. As expected, Emma's resistance intensified. The first day, she drained the bathtub water she had used first. No big deal, I'll just shower. But having my makeup and wallet hidden before work was quite stressful. I don't have the luxury to hunt for treasures in the morning. Desperately searching while nearly being late, I ended up rushing to work at the last minute twice a week, receiving sharp glances from my boss, as if I was neglecting my duties due to my upcoming marriage. This is unacceptable. As her older sister, I internally struggle with whether to forgive or not to forgive. Initially, our parents were unaware of my sister's pranks, but they realized something was amiss after some of my important items were hidden. There was even a scene where our mother scolded my sister, asking, "Why are you behaving so childishly?" On the other hand, my sister thought little of it, but the real problem was with our father. Shortly after my sister was born, when our mother fell ill, my father took care of her, which made him especially fond of my sister. In other words, through his parenting experience, he developed maternal feelings. I understand his feelings. It's natural to feel affectionate towards a daughter whom he had struggled to raise. An incident that made me feel he favored my sister was when I wanted to go to an amusement park as a child. My sister wanted to go to an aquarium instead, and my father ultimately decided we would go to the aquarium. At that time, my friends often said, "Your sister is loved more," so it kind of confirmed there was indeed a bias in affection. Since my mother respected our different opinions, she didn't have a big problem with my father's bias, but if she had been biased too, I might have suffered from a deep sense of inferiority. Perhaps it's my optimistic nature that allowed me to go through it well. I used to say things like, if there's someone who can make me feel sad, I'd like to meet them. However, this time, my father clearly supported my sister. Apparently, my sister felt that her older sister stole her boyfriend, and my father blamed Scott as a heartless man who messed around with both of his daughters. As the older sister with a marriage already decided, I could understand why he would defend my younger sister who felt abandoned. My father's view was met with skepticism by my mother, who half doubted, I can't see Scott doing such a thing, and when I insisted, that's not true, she listened to both sides. Then, my mother judged us both fairly without blindly believing anyone's words. However, my father strongly said, I can't forgive that heartless man who played with my precious daughters as if I was influenced by Scott. He completely ignored my attempts to explain. Although my father is a wonderful father who deeply loves us, this time I wish he would listen to me more. It's troublesome if there are more objections to the marriage, but I've decided to go against them and proceed. Effectively, that means moving up the schedule and starting to live with Scott immediately. If the problem is concentrated on my sister, the best course of action is to distance myself from her. If I leave the family home, her harassment should stop. That should solve the problem. As if to prove this choice was correct, our living together proceeded smoothly. Over time, my mother said, maybe you're right. You're an adult now, live as you see fit, supporting me, and although my father had complaints, he said nothing more. Even if Scott and I were to break up, I doubted that Scott would choose my sister, as it seemed pitiful. I feel this was the smoothest way to handle the situation. It was hard for Scott to be in such an unfortunate situation, but since my sister stopped contacting us, I wondered if everything would finally settle down. Then came the day of the wedding. My sister ultimately did not attend, but my father suggested reconsidering, saying, it's still not too late. My mother laughed and said, I also thought I made a mistake several times after marrying your father. Marriage comes with various things. My father was clearly shocked to hear what she said. Although not everyone blessed us wholeheartedly, at the very least, we had our wedding under our parents' eyes. The next morning, the home doorbell wouldn't stop ringing. What? Scott and I jumped up in a panic, rushing to check the door monitor. Unbelievably, the whole family had come. Dad, Mom, Emma, what's going on? Before my surprise, Emma looked at me coldly. I didn't tell you, but I'm pregnant with Scott's baby. I want him to take responsibility. That's the case. Fortunately, Alyssa has no children yet. Scott should take responsibility and marry Emma. Give Scott up. My mother, confused by my sister and father's suggestion, asked me, what on earth is going on? At that moment, Scott walked to the entrance, still dazed. What? My child, what? He finally woke up and shook his head vigorously at me. No, that's not true. It was a dramatic denial, like something out of a drama. I know. His panicking only makes it more suspicious, so stop that. I kept silent. holding back my laughter. What? Scott's child. How far along is the pregnancy? 2 months. If Scott doesn't take responsibility, this child will be fatherless. That would be too sad, right? 2 months. Shocked by my sister's words, Scott and I looked at each other. Ha 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 ha. Scott and I burst into laughter. Our parents were confused and unable to understand. Emma panicked. Why are you laughing? Look, it's been 2 months, right? Tears spilled from my eyes as I laughed too hard. Emma, we've had some fun times recently, haven't we? Yeah, sure. Emma was flustered by Scott's sudden question. Our parents, not understanding his words, gave him a cold stare. I was probably the only one who understood his intention in this situation. By the way, Emma, do you remember how ripped my abs were? Ha. Hee hee. Emma is dumbfounded. I'm struggling to contain my laughter. Do you remember how many abs I had 2 months ago when you checked? I seem to have misplaced them somewhere recently. It seems like only Scott would compare forgetting his abs to misplacing something. I laughed so hard, it was as if my abs were popping out. Scott, what do you mean by that? The answer is 0. I was about to agree, but Scott ignored Emma's suspicious look and seriously declared he had no abs. Even our mother couldn't help but laugh at this scene. It appears that the one who can make others laugh wins this game. Next question. You've seen my mole, right? How many do I have? What? Ha. Emma was confused about how to respond to Scott's strange question. Naturally, his real intention was to enjoy bewildering her in this situation. In reality, there's nothing physical between them, so she couldn't possibly answer his question. If she makes any mistake, it would be to Scott's advantage. Although simply denying knowledge would resolve it, Scott deliberately pressed for details, taking joy in her inability to answer. In fact, our mother also began to question whether their behavior really indicated a romantic relationship, as it seemed quite different. Naturally, such interactions would not be possible if they were truly intimate. It was a very embarrassing scene to have in front of parents. This very conversation serves as proof that nothing had happened. Scott was attempting to retaliate by confusing Emma. He looked innocently happy, like a child with a new toy. This man is terrifying. If you can't handle this kind of joke, living with Scott might be difficult, I thought, while watching Emma's reaction. Puzzled, Emma blurted out, maybe 10. Ah, too bad. The correct answer is that I don't know either. Even our father had to laugh at this. However, while hiding his laughter, he scolded, "Get serious, Scott. Stop confusing us." I had to hold back our father as he seemed ready to pounce on Scott. Wait, listen. Didn't she say she's 2 months pregnant? That calculation shows it can't be Scott's child. Really? What do you mean? Our mother asked, intrigued. Is it okay if I tell them I asked? And Scott reluctantly nodded. Wait, can I actually say it? Scott double-checked. It's okay, go ahead. Yeah, I'll say it." Taking his cue, he puffed out his chest and began, Mother, father. To tell the truth, around that time, a very delicate part of me was stung by a bee. At his words, everyone around, including Emma, burst into laughter. "Don't lie so much. There's no way such a place got stung." Our father was angry, while our mother clapped her hands laughing. Actually, that's true. It was hot that day, and thinking no one could see me, I opened all the windows and was cooling off naked. Then, that bee suddenly." Scott was blushing from his face to his ears. Embarrassed to have made him share such a story in front of the family, I tried not to laugh, but I couldn't help myself. There's no way someone could be that embarrassed. Yes, there really is such a person right here. Scott objected to our father's words loudly, though it was not a story he was particularly proud of. Even so, that doesn't mean I can definitively say that my pregnancy isn't Scott's fault. Emma, regaining her stance as if to recover her position, restarted the argument. "Think about it, Emma. It was a bee sting. Can you imagine? A crucial part. Dad, try to imagine. As a man, you must understand the pain." Emma was speechless at Scott's serious expression. Our father listened to Scott and unconsciously covered that part, looking down embarrassedly. His anxious expression gradually softened, seemingly coming to terms with Scott's words. "It's a very important, delicate part for a man, so it was really troublesome. I had to call an ambulance. I was in the ambulance with him. I was even more embarrassed." Reacting to Scott's explanation, I couldn't help but respond. It was tough because he had a fever, and in such a condition. It's a bit of a peculiar hobby, isn't it? If there are any doubts, we could ask the hospital that helped us, Scott modestly suggested, causing our mother to burst into laughter. "Scott, ever since you were little, you always wanted to take off your swimsuit when playing in the kiddie pool. Come on, show us the place where you were stung." While laughing heartily, our mother excitedly approached Scott. "It's completely healed now, so there's no evidence. I can't show you something like that." Scott, for some reason, tried to escape from our mother, not covering the relevant part. It was clear from this scene that our mother completely trusted him. I, too, felt relieved. However, Scott seemed uneasy for a slightly different reason. Well, even from a man's perspective, it's not usual to lie about such an embarrassing thing, and it's clear without going to a doctor. At that moment, our father looked at Scott with a compassionate gaze, as if cherishing his slight dignity. It was a face I had never seen before. Ironically, the area that was attacked tends to elicit sympathy in certain situations. Does an injury prove advantageous even in such cases? In the midst of this, I spoke to my bewildered sister, Emma. "Listen, even if such ridiculous lies are told, we're not getting a divorce. In fact, the only person who will end up more miserable is you. Even if you don't believe it, I truly wish for your happiness. After all, you're my only sister." At that moment, Emma's eyes widened dramatically. "Shut up, shut up, shut up. I'm so done. I don't need a Scott who can only be yours." As Emma became emotional and tried to lash out at me, Scott forcefully brushed off her hand. "I don't care what Emma thinks of me. I love Alyssa, and that's enough for me. Emma will continue to be a dear childhood friend and a sister-in-law, but I do not see her romantically. If you continue with these lies, I will respond firmly. As Alyssa's husband, it's my duty to protect her." Emotions heightened and tears nearly spilled. "It's all over. I've never ever felt like the world was against me until today," said the person who wouldn't seem to have been in despair after a bee sting. At that moment, he seemed incredibly dependable. "Watching this," our father said, "if Emma is truly pregnant, I want to see medical records." This request clarified that our parents had merely believed the pregnancy based on words alone. Their kindness in believing their children seemed to have backfired this time. Our mother insisted to Emma, "If you're lying, you should apologize." Trembling, Emma retorted, "I've reached my limit. No one is on my side. I won't apologize for anything," she screamed, tears streaming as she left. Dad attempted to follow her, but Mom stopped him. "Let her be for now. Let her calm down." What changed over the next 2 weeks? Our mother forcefully took a persistently claiming to be pregnant Emma to the gynecologist, but as expected, there were no signs of pregnancy. She was diagnosed as a healthy adult woman with no signs of illness. Subsequently, our parents apologized to Scott. "We're sorry for the unnecessary suspicion. We've known you for a long time and we should have trusted you, Scott. Please take good care of Alyssa." They also apologized to me for making me uncomfortable. Not having disclosed the extent of my estrangement with Emma, I didn't blame my parents. Parents believing in their children might be seen in various lights socially, but for a child, it's reassuring. They are irreplaceable to me. Humans make mistakes. This time, it was our father who did. Indulging Emma led to problems again, but considering the great debt I owe them, I chose to forgive them. Without my parents, I wouldn't have the happy life I lead now, nor might I have met Scott. After the truth about the fake pregnancy was revealed, Emma, embarrassed, stormed out saying, "I don't need a home like this anymore." Our father, who had been generous to Emma, had previously said, "It's better for her to have a cooling-off period away from home," and chose not to follow her. Our mother said sternly, "Such behavior can't just be excused as being carried away by romantic feelings. She must apologize when she returns. If she can't do that, she can't come back home." It's hard to imagine such an angry Emma apologizing to us. Mom agreed with this thought. This was effectively an exile from the family. 7 years later, Emma returned to the family home and apologized to us once, but eventually she was completely cut off. Despite her initially very sincere behavior, by the end of the year, excessive alcohol consumption led to serious trouble. The catalyst was her sneaking into Scott's blanket while he was asleep and provocatively asking, "Aren't you tired of your sister?" Scott, startled as if he'd seen a ghost, screamed loudly, causing a commotion among those nearby. The noise echoed through the house, waking not only me but also our parents. This commotion revealed the incident to the family. He wasn't a suspect to anything strange this time, but the drunken Emma exclaimed, "I'm so jealous of you always being close to your sister." pay some attention to me too." Her demand was unrealistic, and I had no intention of complying. In response, I exploded in anger, yelling, "Stop it." Scott trembled like a small chihuahua, and our parents, angrier than ever, disowned Emma. Especially our father, despite his deep love for Emma, expressed his outrage. "I don't remember raising a child who behaves like this." I will never forget this shocking event. Once sober, Emma apologized repeatedly, but our father firmly refused, saying, "I can't believe you. The things you do when you are drunk reveal the truth." This resulted in Emma tearfully leaving the family home for good. After that, my life changed significantly, with my first pregnancy being confirmed by the end of the year. Since then, I have continued to have children, and am now a mother of 4 at 34. Our home includes a pair of twins among the children, and although I've only experienced childbirth 3 times, the house is always lively. In fact, nearly every year, new family members join, making our daily life as festive and fun as a festival. If left unattended, the walls quickly become like an art exhibition due to the kids' crayon drawings. Scott and I often move around the house busily with vacuum cleaners, especially on Sunday mornings. Sometimes the kids redraw on the walls we've just cleaned, but this too is a fun part of their creativity. Our youngest is currently in a bit of a rebellious phase, resisting dressing, brushing his teeth, and using the toilet. No clothes. "I don't want to brush my teeth." "I don't want to go to the toilet," he cries, which can be challenging, but every time I see the angelic sleeping faces of all 4, I instantly forget all these small disasters. Our parents, not just with the first grandchild but with each new one, pour deep love and often come to help with childcare, greatly relieving us. Scott is very cooperative in raising the kids, often giving them piggyback rides, but each time they pull on his hair, he worries about being bald in the future. Yet, thinking of the children, all these small hardships feel dear to me. Becoming bald is okay. With Scott's recent promotion and increased income, advanced hair loss treatment is an option if needed. I keep quiet about that, but seeing Scott worry about his thinning hair is somewhat amusing. Seeing various sides of the person you love is very interesting and enjoyable. It's one of the small joys between us. He he he. Ideally, people might prefer a quiet and calm house, but our home is the exact opposite. It's too noisy, but all that noise is a great source of happiness for me now. 1 year ago, my father passed away. At first, my mother was very depressed and couldn't be left alone, but recently she has started to laugh more and seems to be regaining her brightness little by little. Just as our family began to stabilize, my husband acted on his own, causing great turmoil within our home. "I've already told your mom about the pain in my parents' legs, and she said it's fine for us to use this space, so I think there's no problem." There's definitely a problem. This is the Owen family. Why are you driving us out and letting your family relax? For some reason, my husband brought his parents, who had been living with his brother and sister-in-law, into our home. Even my father's room, which had been untouched for a long time, was used without permission. Due to my husband, who does as he pleases, and his thoughtless parents, it has become uncomfortable to live here. Recently, my mother has been spending more time outside. This is unacceptable. No matter what, I must get his parents to leave this house. This is a story about how my husband and his parents almost took over the house after my father's death. My name is Michelle, and I am 40 years old this year. I married Wayne when I was 28. I have an illness that makes it difficult for me to work outside. I used to work at a company when I was younger, but due to my unstable health condition, which often caused inconvenience to others, I later worked from home to earn an income. However, my income is dependent on my health, so it is not stable every month. Due to this instability, living alone is difficult. So, until I got married, I depended on my parents, who were both earning, and worked during the gaps in household chores. After getting married, Wayne and I started living together in a rented apartment. Gradually, we were able to save money, and we planned to own a home in the future. However, the situation changed abruptly when Wayne told his parents that his brother had built a two-family home to live with his parents. Following this, my parents suggested that we live with them as they were planning a major renovation of their house. My parents were concerned about my unstable income and the monthly fluctuations in it. They judged that it would be difficult for just the two of us to own a home, and they seemed to feel insecure about the rented apartment we were living in. I am truly grateful for my parents' proposal, but living with a spouse's parents is not easy. Even though I was considering this, I tried to respect Wayne's opinion, who was excited that my parents would provide all the funding, and he accepted the proposal to live together without hesitation. For about the next 10 years we lived together, the four of us, and I felt that we had a relatively good relationship. As my father was strict, my usually carefree husband was cautious in front of him, and my parents avoided unnecessary interference, except when the four of us were together. Despite having an unstable income and not being able to have children, we were able to live a smooth married life without any major conflicts, thanks to the support of my parents. I will definitely repay this favor someday. With this feeling of gratitude, I had obtained a qualification for nursing care that would be necessary in the future. However, before I could utilize this qualification, my father suddenly passed away from a heart attack. Unable to accept reality, my mother lost her appetite, lost weight, and frequently fell ill. Therefore, I tried to stay close to my mother as much as possible, but during this time, Wayne's behavior gradually began to show signs of abnormality. 10 years ago, during the renovation of our house, our home was expanded from 2 stories to 3 stories. The first floor had a bedroom and toilet exclusively for my parents, and the storeroom was used as my father's study. The second floor had the kitchen, laundry space, and bathroom, which were shared by the entire family, but the living space adjacent to the kitchen was mainly used by my parents. And the third floor was entirely given to us, the couple. We had our own toilet and 2 rooms, which we used as a living room and a bedroom. Except for coming down to the second floor for meals and baths, it was possible for us to live mostly on the 3rd floor. Despite having lived like this all along, after my father's passing, Wayne inexplicably started spending more time on the 2nd floor. "Why are you watching TV on the 2nd floor? This is Mom's area, right?" Despite my repeated warnings, Wayne argued, "She's currently in the bedroom, so it's fine to use this place." Using the fact that the refrigerator is on the 2nd floor as a reason, Wayne started spending his time in the 2nd floor living room daily. Knowing he was there, my mother, being reserved, stopped coming up to the 2nd floor. Even when I spoke to Wayne about this, he did not accept it. After my father's death, Wayne began to act selfishly, and we had frequent conflicts. After arguing many times, we hardly talked to each other anymore when something bad happened. 1 year after my father's death, my mother, who had been mostly homebound, started going out more often, which was a relief. What are these boxes? This happened one night when I returned from shopping with my mother. When we returned home, the door to the storeroom on the first floor was open, and looking inside, all the items that had been in my father's study had disappeared. In that place, an old dresser and bed that I didn't recognize were placed. Additionally, many cardboard boxes were stacked up. Seeking the reason for what was happening, I quickly headed to the second floor living room, but there was not only Wayne but also other people. In the kitchen, my mother-in-law was standing, and my father-in-law was enjoying drinks with Wayne in the living room. I called Wayne out into the hallway and asked him about the situation, but he explained I had to call them because Mother wasn't getting along with my brother's wife. I decided to let them use that storeroom. His answer was self-centered. Why didn't you say anything? We haven't been talking recently, and it would have ended up in a fight anyway, Wayne said. He argued that the lack of prior consultation was because our relationship was bad. Where is Dad's stuff? You didn't throw it away, did you? I asked. Yeah, I threw it away. Keeping things that aren't used is meaningless, Wayne replied. Enraged by Wayne's actions, I yelled loud enough for his parents behind the door and my mother downstairs to hear. Please leave immediately. All right, put all the discarded items back where they were. All right. Wayne dismissively brushed off the words I spoke in anger. Though he said all right, he likely wouldn't take any action. In past arguments, he always casually responded and ended the conversation. Please listen to me seriously, Michelle. As I raised my voice, I heard someone call out from behind me. Turning around, I saw my mother climbing the stairs, placing her finger to her lips and shaking her head. It's late, so they will stay here tonight, she said, considering my parents-in-law. Even when I tried to talk to Wayne after that, he only dodged the issue, busy taking care of his parents and not facing it head-on. The next morning, the drunken Wayne slept in the living room on the second floor. The table was cluttered with used dishes, and my irritation only grew. Unable to bring myself to start the laundry at that moment, I was startled when clothes were thrown at me. Michelle, you're commendable for doing your parents' laundry too. Anna, even though it's a two-family house, she only does their own laundry. Without asking me whether I could do their laundry, my mother-in-law handed me clothes as if it were a given and began complaining about her daughter-in-law. Do they really plan to live here? This is my family home, built by us, the Owen family. After my mother-in-law left the room, I tried to wake Wayne, who was sleeping in the living room. However, he only groaned and didn't wake up easily. Unable to stand it any longer, I went back to my room on the third floor and contacted my brother-in-law. Yes, I've heard about it from Wayne. What do you mean you've heard? I haven't been explained anything. This is the Owen house. It's not appropriate for the Hanson family to live here. Brother, please help. Suddenly being handed laundry, I panicked. If I don't kick them out soon, they'll probably stay forever. I asked for help, but my brother-in-law simply replied. I talked to Wayne, but it seems the situation between Anna and Mother is beyond repair, and she herself doesn't want to live here. That can't be. I'm sorry, but please try to handle it. Wait, just a minute. Even as I insisted it was my parents' house, I was ignored, and the conversation was unilaterally ended, and the call was cut off. Troubled, I went back to the second floor to Wayne. Mom, my mother had just woken up and was tidying up the mess in the living room. I'll take care of this, so why don't you go wash up and refresh yourself, Mom? Originally, I had intended for Wayne to clean up, but ultimately, I ended up dealing with it. After sending my mother to the washroom, I started doing the dishes, when suddenly Wayne woke up and began rummaging through the refrigerator behind me. I washed my hands and brought up yesterday's issue again. "Did you really throw away my father's belongings? Don't keep asking." "Yes, I threw them away. You did this without consulting our family at all. Are you aware of that? It's really selfish." "Well, there's no need to keep things that aren't used." Is this a difference in values, or was his relationship with my father just formal? My mother and I had wanted to keep my father's belongings as they were for at least a while, but Wayne had disposed of them easily. No matter how much I explain, it seems he will not understand. Though I am almost giving up on getting Wayne to understand, thinking of my mother's sadness weighs heavily on me. I can't continue living with someone who throws away others' belongings without permission. I need to think about the future. Despite warning him about the future, Wayne remained silent with a sullen face. "By the way, I contacted your brother earlier." "What? Why?" I asked him to come pick them up. "I told him we can't live together because this is my parents' house. Listen to me." I relayed the conversation with his brother, but Wayne frowned and yelled, "Don't belittle my parents. They have nowhere to return." "There's no such thing as having nowhere to return. They can go back to your brother's house." "But they can't go back there." "Then they should rent somewhere else to live. This is our parents." The argument continued, and Wayne cut off the conversation and left without listening to the rest of what I had to say. As he left, he said, "Always about your parents' house, your parents' house. This is also my house." Indeed, this house is also a home to Wayne. By continuously emphasizing that it's our parents' house, I might be making him feel uncomfortable. However, my parents never accepted money from us, even when we tried to contribute monthly. "You will eventually support this house on your own." With this statement, we were essentially directed to save money. Considering how much she has thought about this, I wanted my mother to be the top priority. I hoped he would refrain from taking unilateral actions just because it's our house. I struggled to figure out how to make him understand. While I was agonizing over my feelings toward Wayne, my mother returned to the second-floor living room. She had probably heard our conversation on the stairs. My mother spoke to me. "If they can't find a place to go, it's okay for them to stay here until they do. Your parents-in-law are also part of your family, Michelle. See, your mother understands too." Wayne argued back, empowered by her words. I was irritated by his manner of speaking but acquiesced to my mother's suggestion. "Please find a new home." "Okay. All right." No matter how many times I ask, Wayne's responses remain vague. I was worried whether he'd really look for a new place, but I needed to make sure this one thing was upheld. Then, 3 days later, something happened. Really. I couldn't hide my joy during the phone call. I had almost given up, thinking the items were discarded, but I was delighted when I contacted a junk removal service and confirmed that my father's belongings were still intact. After hanging up, I immediately contacted a storage facility I had been researching. I had arranged to store my father's belongings there during my parents-in-law's stay, as they might get thrown out again if left at home. Before leaving, I stopped by my mother's room on the first floor, but she wasn't there. I wanted to tell her about the safely stored items, but I couldn't find her anywhere. So, I went to the living room on the second floor. "Oh, Michelle," my tipsy mother-in-law greeted me with a smile. Despite it being early, she was already heavily intoxicated. "Are you going out?" "Wayne, still in his work clothes, was drinking in the living room. The usually tidy second-floor living room was now cluttered with empty cans and dishes. I had repeatedly told my parents-in-law to use the third-floor living room, but they were still on the second floor today. I couldn't sense any intention from them to look for the new residence they had promised. I called Wayne into the hallway to talk. "Why won't your parents go up to the third floor? They say their legs hurt. But Mom is on the second floor. Their legs hurt, so it's even more difficult for them to go up to the third floor. It would be resolved if your mother would go up to the third floor instead." No matter how much I complain, Wayne always seems to override my opinions. Exhausted from the busy and contentious environment, I changed the subject to ask about my mother's whereabouts. "What? She went to a net cafe." I was surprised by Wayne's answer. "Yes, with a friend. Your mom is really youthful. She handles the computer just fine and might come back late tonight." Wayne seemed impressed by my mother's youth, but I couldn't imagine her spending time in a net cafe. It wasn't strange since she frequently uses computers, but why would she go to a net cafe? Then it hit me. My mother usually uses the desktop computer on the second floor. Since it's not portable, she might be feeling inconvenienced. "Hey, can we let my mom use the second floor?" The second floor has the computer. There's no TV in the first floor bedroom, and it seems like my mother has a lot of spare time. Even when I asked, Wayne looked displeased. "I've already told your mom about the pain in my parents' legs, and she said it's fine for us to use this space, so I think there's no problem." There's definitely a problem. This is the Owen family. Why are you driving us out and letting your family relax? I often feel that Wayne lacks understanding. The reason my mother went to the net cafe was probably because she wanted her own space. Saying she went with a friend was clearly a lie. I suspected it was a statement made to consider Wayne's feelings. Even so, Wayne seemed to conveniently believe my mother's story. "You always think only of your parents." My parents don't know anyone here and can't meet friends. Since your mother has friends nearby, it should be fine for her to go out during the day. If she doesn't like it, she can go to the third floor. He shouted in anger. Wayne's expression at that moment was terrifying, unlike anything I had seen before, and I was left speechless. Is this what it means for affection to cool in an instant? I was more surprised by my own calmness than by the anger. I truly felt that we could no longer live together. I left the house without saying anything. Before going to pick up my father's things, I stopped by the lawyer's office. In the evening, I visited my mother's room on the first floor and handed her the keys to the storage locker. "I'll store these temporarily, but I promise to put everything back where it belongs," I said sincerely. My mother listened quietly, placed her hand on my shoulder, and made me look up. "Michelle, you shouldn't disregard his parents. I might leave this world at any time, and once I'm gone, won't your family only consist of them? Since you're not strong, you might need to rely on them, right?" My mother smiled gently, but I couldn't nod in agreement. I was completely fed up with Wayne's behavior since my father's death. I strongly wished to end my relationship with my thoughtless parents-in-law quickly. I pulled out the documents I had received at the office from my bag. "I'm filing for divorce." I said it without hesitation, and my mother silently stared at the divorce papers. After a few minutes of silence, my mother sighed and started talking. "Your father never took any money from you too, did he?" "That's right. Telling you to save wasn't just for your future. This was new information to me." My mother leaned in close, making sure her voice wouldn't carry outside, and whispered, "We set things up so that even if we're gone, you, Michelle, with little income and weak health, can stand up to Wayne. Of course, it's best to get along, but life is unpredictable after the divorce. This house is set up to be yours. That was the idea. The house should support your life. With the government payments and your income, it should be enough. My mother smiled gently for a moment, but her expression quickly turned cold. Foon, you're getting a divorce. While saying that, she picked up the smartphone that was on the bed. The faint vibration sound I had heard while talking about the storage unit became clearer once she took the phone in her hand. When she showed me the screen, I looked at her with a puzzled expression. Notifications from a social media app were popping up one after another. Though I was unable to understand the situation, my mother smiled contentedly and said, "It went viral." A few days later, in the morning, I confronted Wayne with the divorce papers. "So you resort to divorce whenever things don't work out? Fine, let's divorce. But in exchange, I'm selling this house," Wayne said. He quickly took the divorce papers from me. "However, he can't sell this house. The house is registered in my name. Originally, it was under my mother's name, but we changed it to mine anticipating the future." "Ah, if I hadn't married you, maybe I could have had children," Wayne said sarcastically, but I felt nothing. I know what's coming for Wayne. Make sure you have no regrets. Watching Wayne handle things roughly while showing his displeasure, I whispered that quietly. "What?" As I responded to his question, the doorbell rang. Knowing my mother was waiting outside, I didn't answer the doorbell and started doing the laundry. "Over here." My mother's lively voice came from downstairs along with the sound of several movers' footsteps. Wayne, wondering what was happening, went downstairs. Soon Wayne's panicked voice and my parents-in-law's shouts could be heard. My mother had called the movers to send my parents-in-law's belongings back to my brother-in-law's house. "Stop it, please." "Mother, why are you moving people's belongings without permission?" As if she had anticipated his words, my mother cut him off and strongly countered. "You were the first to dispose of things without permission." When Wayne had discarded my father's belongings, my mother kept quiet, thinking of what might happen after we were gone. "If you're divorcing, I won't endure it any longer." With that declaration, my mother decided to kick my parents-in-law out of the house immediately. Then, Wayne received a call when he was trying to stop the movers and exclaimed, "Wait, what news?" He picked up the phone and frantically turned on the TV while likely talking to a friend. The program shown on the screen was a morning TV show that creates news from social media posts. "Wait, is that our house?" As the image of our home appeared on the TV, Wayne was shocked. I couldn't believe that my mother had been doing this on social media. The events of the night I declared the divorce came rushing back. It went viral. At that time, what my mother had shown me was the screen of the social media app currently being broadcasted on TV. It had posts saying, "My daughter's husband is causing problems. We might lose the house," and starting with that post, my mother's tweets garnered a lot of sympathy, leading to interview requests from major newspapers. Originally, my mother had no intention of participating in interviews, but as soon as she learned of my decision to divorce, she changed her mind and responded positively to the interview offers, which led to the progression of the story. As I stared at the TV showing our house, my mother whispered softly, "Now Wayne will also find it hard to stay here, won't he?" In that moment, her eyes sparkled as if filled with joy. I stared coldly at Wayne, who was pale-faced. He undoubtedly feared that this would become known at his workplace. The power of the media is immeasurable, and once information is circulated, it's inevitable that people will try to find out who owns the house. Eventually, photographs of Wayne, my parents-in-law, and our family were widely published on the internet. Driven into a corner, Wayne hurriedly submitted the divorce papers, packed his belongings, and left the house. Thus, peace finally returned to our home. I was able to safely return my father's belongings to the storeroom, and I feel relieved. Currently, my mother and I live peacefully together, but there might come a day when I will be left alone in this house. Yet, I am determined to cherish this house, never forgetting my gratitude towards my father and mother.